All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me keep it a buck with you. The WNBA is not a sport that is for somebody like me, right? The WNBA is not a sport that is made for somebody like me. I had a chance to recently watch the entire Bill Burr special on Netflix. I enjoyed every minute of it. Shout out to him. But when he started making comments about how feminism is failing the WNBA, there's very few people who could deny that. Let's keep it real. There's very few people who can deny that. The WNBA is nothing more than a subsidiary of the NBA, right? It's basically something that the NBA created. And as far as I'm concerned, and as far as what I know, they lose tens of millions of dollars on the WNBA every year. But they want to blame men for that. They want to blame men for the fact that the WNBA fails, when it's women who should be supporting the WNBA. In fairness, right? Guys have the NBA, women have the WNBA. I think that's fair. They should be supporting the WNBA, and men should be supporting the NBA like they've been doing. But even women don't go to WNBA games. But yet and still, somehow that's the guy's fault, right? That blows my mind, y'all. That part blows my mind, right? And you could protest, and you could say men are doing this, and the patriarchy is oppressing, and all of that stuff. But when there's a guy who went out and did street interviews that I just saw, and women can't even name a WNBA team, that's a problem. But you can't get rid of the WNBA, can't you? Because all of a sudden, if the NBA decides they no longer want to have the WNBA, which I don't think they will or they can, even if they wanted to, they would try to cancel the NBA as a result. They would try to cancel the NBA as a result. I think the times in the world that we're living in is the exact reason why a lot of us are going abroad, and it's cool. Like I said, I know I find comfort and comfortability in my life abroad. I love it, right? Feminist issues, Me Too movement issues and stuff like that. For me, I'm not really in a place, in a space wherein that really affects me in my daily life, because actually I just kind of focus on being, with my wife or going to work and coming home. So I don't really find myself in situations where I allow myself to even have to be a part of that nonsense. But when you have a man, comedian, putting it into perspective, although it's funny, but real, it does make you think. And even up until this point, I'm pretty sure there are going to be some people who are going to sit there and try to find a way out of basically taking accountability for the fact that that is the reason why the WNBA is failing. The WNBA is not a sport for men. If it was a sport for men, men would be in it, right? Now, I'm not saying that men can't go out there and support their favorite WNBA players or their favorite teams because they find a young lady to be attractive or whatever. That's cool. But we got the NBA. That's what we pay attention to. And women watch more NBA than they watch WNBA. When you go out there and you ask some of these young ladies who their favorite players are, it's very rare that they even name a WNBA player. I want to be like Kobe, right? I want to be like Jordan. I want to play like the female version of Jordan or the female version of Shaq or whatever. That's what you hear. And that's the scary part. But yet and still, that's all men's fault. How, Sway? How? How's that man's fault that the WNBA is failing when women don't even support the WNBA? You would rather just leapfrog and have women take accountability for the fact that WNBA is failing and just go ahead and blame men, even though it was men who created the sport in the first place. Not basketball, but I'm saying the subsidiary, the NBA made the WNBA specifically so that women would have their own league. So they provide the opportunity, they put it out there, they give you what you need, but yet still, nah, that's man's fault. We failing because they keeping us down. They holding us down and they're oppressing us. They don't pay us enough. I mean, in fairness, you could talk about equality and wages and all of that stuff, but the WNBA brings in, the NBA brings in far more revenue than the WNBA does. And usually, because of the revenue that the NBA brings in, teams are able to create salary caps. If you want to know how business works from a basic standpoint, they can only afford to pay these players based off of salary caps. And usually the salary caps is based on revenue, viewership, what do they call that shit? When they play games on cable TV and stuff like that, they get a share of that revenue. So there's a lot that goes into it, but if the league isn't bringing in the revenue that it needs to pay its players, or, if it's not growing like, the WNBA is, playing in China and places abroad and stuff like that, how is that our fault? How was that man's fault? Now, I'm not a basketball player like that. I barely watch basketball myself. I know a couple players. Every now and again, I might get into a talk about, basketball. But other than that, I don't really sweat it too much. I like to look at everything from a business standpoint. And business speaking, if I'm losing tens of millions of dollars annually and I'm still keeping you around, aren't we really trying to help you succeed by not just deleting it, period? Because usually if a business was losing money, ladies and gentlemen, if a subsidiary of the company is losing money, guess what? They usually cut off that subsidiary in order to cut the losses. Kind of how business works. You don't keep operating in the red, right? You just can't, because that's not good business practice, right? But yet and still, they keep them around, but it's still man's fault that the WNBA is failing. And I think that's sad. I think it's sad when everything that goes wrong in some of these young ladies' lives is the man's fault. Damn, Sway, all the time? It's always us? 99.9% of the time, 100% of the time, it's us? Come on, baby. Come on now. I know it's hard to take accountability sometimes, but sometimes I think it's in your best interest to at least look within self. I know I'm asking a lot. I am. I'm gonna leave it at that though, man. Y'all take care. Y'all stay blessed, man. Doc is out.